Hi folks, this is Dr. Rob CYWES. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. And today's video is about calling bullshit on all those gum flappers on the internet. So here's my little quote. The internet is a great place to get good ideas, but it's a terrible place to get good advice. So that's exactly what I'm doing today. I'm not giving you advice. I'm just going to help you to think a little bit differently. And today we're going to answer the question, how much should I eat? How much food should I eat in a 24-hour period? And everybody on the internet is, oh, you got to do this, you got to do this. And what the internet does, what all those gum flappers do, is they practice algorithm medicine, exactly the type of medicine we're trying to get away from. They plug you into their algorithm and you should do as they say. Whether you've had a stroke and you're sitting in a wheelchair and you're all crumpled up and you can hardly move, or whether you are my buddy Sean Baker who's working out 36 hours a day and he's enormous and muscular and a huge big bodybuilder. I am not either of those two. And therefore, I'm going to talk about a strategy, an algorithm to help you determine how much you should eat each day, but there are a few concepts that you want to understand. Okay? And this is what the gum flappers on the internet are not going to tell you. The first concept is this, is that if you are watching this video, you probably live in a situation of abundance. You may be poor, you may not be wealthy, but you still live in an era of abundance where you have access to food. Most of us spend our entire lives within 50 yards of an abundance of food, of readily available, readily edible food, whether we like it or not, okay? My wife, for example, won't eat oysters. We got cans of oysters in the house. But I bet you, if you had a can of oysters in Ethiopia, every single person would be wolfing those down. So we have, in an era of abundance, we have the choice of what we like to eat and don't like to eat. And I'm not saying eat food you don't like, but that is one of the ways to look at abundance. Starvation is not what we're talking about, okay? So how much should I eat? The first thing you got to look at is look at yourself and determine for yourself what your needs are. Are you this big athlete that's working out like crazy? Are you trying to bulk up? Are you trying to drop weight? Are you trying to get healthier? Or are you in a steady state where you're eating just enough? And really, there are three scenarios. There is the frequency and the amount that we eat. And if we're eating often and a lot, we're going to gain. There's no question about it. We're not going to gain just weight. It's not about calories. This is not calories in, calories out. But we are net oversupplying to our body, and there are certain people that need to do that. I got a buddy, Robert Sykes. He's a professional power lifter. You'll see him on the internet. He's called Keto Savage. He's eating enormous amounts because he's trying to bulk up. He's trying to get ready for another competition, size competition. Okay? So his needs should be incoming rather than outgoing. So that what comes in nutritionally should supersede what's going out. Okay? The second part is there are some people who are in a very steady state. My LMHR population, lean mass hyperresponders, their weight is normal, they're healthy, they are in a preventive mode. Their in and output should be about equal. Now we'll talk, this is not calories. Don't think calories, don't think calories, don't think calories. And then there are the majority of us that are still trying to drop weight, get healthier. Our input should be less than our output because we are trying to rid ourselves of excess. And please don't think calories, okay? So here's the way nutrition works. The first thing to understand is that the amount you eat is not the amount your body needs. Let me say that again. The amount you eat is not the amount your body needs. And here's why. This thing, our bodies, already contains a huge amount of nutrition. We're trying to gain, trying to lose, trying to stay the same. There's already a massive amount of nutrition in our bodies. And the way the body works is it's a very, very survival-oriented organism. So the body is very good at recycling. Very good at recycling. And the common things that it recycles, protein, fat, sugar, And then all the micronutrients, the minerals, the vitamins, the trace elements, they're all being recycled and retained. So if certain levels are low, your body's actually going to retain them in priority format. For example, salt is one of the primary things the human body retains, because normal saline in your bloodstream is so vital to protecting the organism. So salt is always prioritized. Sodium chloride is always prioritized as something to save, and it will pee out the less important, although they're important. Your calciums, your potassiums, your magnesiums will be peed out if you're at a sodium deficit. That's the way the body works. So the first thing to understand is that the human body, the primary source of our nutrition between meals is what we're recycling within ourselves. You don't need to eat that, folks. You don't need to eat what your body is recycling, turning around throughout the day. It's breaking protein down. It's reformatting protein. It's doing that all the time. So when you're eating, you're only topping up. This is important. You're only topping up the micro fraction of what you lost from the previous meal to the present meal. And it is a pathetically small amount. And nobody knows exactly how much that is. So the body's priority is to recycle and preserve what it currently has inside of itself. The second thing, and there is some decay, and all you're looking at is replenishing what's decayed and what's lost. Sweat, poop, pee, what's lost. The next crucial thing about the human body is that everything is controlled in a cyclical fashion in a healthy human being by hormonal flux. So, for example, when you eat, insulin, human growth hormone, T3 hormone is there to build, to store, to replenish. And then for long periods of time between meals, when you're using up some of those stores, glucagon, testosterone, your female hormones are there, and somatostatin is there to recycle and eliminate some of those things. So restoring healthy hormonal function is also very, very important. And how much you eat per meal depends on that restoration, because here's the other thing. Your body is prioritized to protect itself. And the greatest damage that happens to the human body is related to overeating and the abundance, particularly of carbohydrates, that we overeat per meal and per snack. So if you've got stuff coming in all the time, the human body's priority is to store or use up those excess products, whether they are calories, whether they are protein, fat, or sugar, whether they are minerals, vitamins, trace elements. It's to store and replenish and use up those harmful toxins, particularly sugar. So the human body is prioritized to handle excess sugar. So with those two concepts, the first thing is the biggest pool of what we use every day between meals is what's already inside of us, with the obligation to protect us from any excess from the previous consumptive time. And those are hormonally controlled. Okay? So how much should we eat? If you're in the health restoration phase of your life, trying to lose weight, trying to get rid of your diabetes, trying to protect your heart, you want to actually undereat. Not just calories. Don't think calories. You want to undereat in everything with just a minor top-up of micro and macronutrients. And there's going to be I'm going to slow down my metabolism. The very next video that we're going to drop is going to be about metabolic rate and the bullshit about metabolism. But understand that it is a pathetically small amount that you actually need meal in and meal out. And if you're somebody who's done an extended fast, 5 days, I've got some people who've done a month of water fasting, nothing bad happens. Nothing bad happens. So you can go a month without eating, without consuming anything except water and maybe a little bit of salt and electrolytes, and be absolutely fine. In fact, be healthier on the back end of that. So stop being petrified that you're not getting enough which is what the internet sells. Oh, you must eat this, you must have this. Abundance is what the internet is still selling, whether it's perceived as being healthy or unhealthy for you. The single best thing that you can eat for the most part, unless your BMI is super low and you're super healthy, the best thing that you can eat is nothing. The best thing you can eat is nothing. And always remember that, folks, that your mindset should be, how little can I eat and how seldom can I eat? And if that is your starting mindset, you're not going to be anorexic. That's a disease. That's a psychopathology, just like carbohydrate addiction is. There is no danger. There's no danger of anorexia, which is a mental health disease, if you don't eat very much. Please understand that. Biologically, if you're eating a small amount, it is almost always going to be enough. And the best way to do that is, number one, to predetermine ahead of time when and what you're going to eat. And ideally, if you can eat 2 meals a day or even 1 meal a day, for the majority of us, 2 meals a day is more than adequate. And if you come to that mealtime and you preemptively have selected a combination of foods that have decent amount of protein, 20 to 25% protein, 75 to 80% fat, and maybe if you are not a carbohydrate addict, a small fraction of carbohydrates, but primarily protein and fat, minerals, vitamins, trace elements, micronutrients as part of that meal. If that's the constituents, and you don't have to eat it all at once. Some days you can eat a steak, some days you can eat some eggs, some days you can eat some small fish, some days you can eat some large fish. It doesn't matter, but the macro-micro component should be complete over a period of time, but in trivial amounts. Trivial amounts. So the next thing that you want to do is, when you get to that meal, what we tend to do is, even though you've predetermined what you're going to eat, our brain typically predetermines how much we think we need. And it's always more than you actually need. Very seldom that you're going to undereat to the point of harm. So in the kitchen, let your brain decide how much you're going to eat. And then take a fraction of that food. Take a fraction of that food to another table. So, for example, I'll just give you a simple example of food that has everything in it. I can eat a 4-egg omelet. That's kind of what my brain has always told me I need. A 4-egg omelet. I throw some heavy cream in there. I throw some cheese in there. It's a pretty nice, good omelet, some salt on there. It is a wonderful, perfect source of nutrition, macro and micro, in the right balance. But I don't need that much. Hell, I don't need that much. I can eat it. I can eat it very comfortably. I don't overeat when I eat it. My body can handle it. It's been conditioned to do so. But about 7 or 8 years ago, I went down to making a 1-egg omelet. 1 egg, a little bit of cheese, a little bit of heavy cream. Leave the pan on the stove, leave the eggs out, go to another table and eat that omelet. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get not your brain to regulate how much your belly is going to get, because it doesn't know, but you're trying to get the hormones from your belly to tell your brain how much it actually needs. And you want to trigger those hormones, and you want to listen to them. And the hormones are GLP-1, GIP, peptide YY, somatomedin, somatostatins, and leptin. Those are the hormones that control satiety, but they take time to be released to go back to your brain. So you eat that pathetically small amount, take your time, and then maybe do something. Do something for emotional restitution. Remember, dessert is what we do at the end of the meal for emotional restitution. Get up and do dessert. Go for a walk, do something, and then come back to the kitchen and ask yourself, do you still feel like more? And I bet you your hunger is going to be satisfied and you don't need more. If you do, make another one. But in 7 or 8 years of doing this, folks, I've never, ever, ever made more than a 1-egg omelet. And I've never needed one. Okay? So when you do, how much should I eat? Do not listen to any dietitian that has some mathematical formula to tell you this amount of protein, this amount of fat, this calculation. Do not measure anything by the numbers, because as soon as you do that, you're preempting what your body's needs are. And it's always in excess because it doesn't take into account this pool of recycling that we do. All you're trying to do is replenish that tiny fraction of loss. And it is pathetically small. The reality is, if it was big, it was a big amount, we would not exist as a species. Because historically, we've lived in an era of starvation, of not having enough. Now we live in an era of abundance. So please understand the concept of how much I eat is as little as possible. Don't be afraid of being undernourished. We're all overnourished. Of course, everything has its exceptions. I've got some LMHRs whose BMIs are in the 17, 18 range, and they don't have enough to recycle. And they're still petrified of eating. But that's more a problem that can be solved very readily by increasing meal frequency. And we do that. But for the majority of us, I'm going to eat more. We're overdoing it. And do not let the gum flappers on the internet with big plates of food show you how much they're eating. I look at that and I think, seriously? That is way in excess of what any human being needs. Way in excess. So stop looking at their pictures of pretty food, and it may be exactly the right type of ketogenic food, carnivore plate, but it's way in excess of what most of us need. Figure this out for yourself. If you need help in that direction, SHERYL in my office, myself, can give you guidance that's appropriate for you. You are an individual. You are not an algorithm. You are an individual. Let's individualize what your current needs are and shift that as things change. If you want to consult, give us a shout, 561-517-0642. You can text, you can leave a message, you can WhatsApp, you can contact us in that way. Or info@jsapa.com, info@jsapa.com. That's our internet address. That's our email address. Send us a note if you want to visit. I am the Carb Addiction Doc. If I've made you think, I've done my job. Leave comments below.